Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Vitter, do you believe that Brown versus Board of Education was correctly decided?
Senator, I don't mean to be coy, but I think I get into a difficult area when I start commenting on Supreme Court decisions, which are correctly decided and which I may disagree with. Again, my personal political or religious views I would set aside. That is Supreme Court precedent. It is binding. If I were honored to be confirmed, I would be bound by it, and of course I would uphold it.
Do you believe it was correctly decided?
And again, I will respectfully not comment on what could be my boss's ruling, the Supreme Court. I would be bound by it, and if I start commenting on I agree with this case or don't agree with this case, I think we get into a slippery slope. I would be, if I'm honored to be confirmed, I would be bound by Supreme Court precedent, and that's what I would follow, and Fifth Circuit precedent.
Are there any cases that you can tell us were correctly decided by the United States Supreme Court?
Well, in hindsight, Senator, it's very easy when we have hindsight and looking back through history to see ones that were not correctly decided. And so it's very easy to see a Plessy versus Ferguson and to read Justice Harlan's dissent, which of course became the basis for Brown versus Board of Education, and to look at that and say, well, that sounds very obvious to us now in 2018 that was the right decision, but that's hindsight. I have the benefit of that hindsight. Again, Supreme Court precedents that are in existence
I'm
now.
not asking you to exercise hindsight. I'm asking you as a matter of your legal and professional judgment, whether there's any case that you can tell us was correctly decided by the United States Supreme Court.
Again, my personal views on Supreme Court decisions, I would put aside. I would be bound by those decisions. If I am honored to be confirmed by the Senate, I would take an oath that I would uphold those decisions, and that's what I would do, Senator.
Umbrella. She's up. Whole nother level of shit you can't even understand.
What is good, my people? We are live back again with another episode of The Forecast. So down in Florida, a 31-year-old brother, Corey Jones, was shot and killed by Palm Beach Gardens police. Now, let's go back and see what led to the death of this brother and what caused the police to shoot and kill him.
This morning, an independent investigation is underway after the deadly shooting of a Delray Beach City employee by a police officer. 31-year-old Corey Jones moonlighted as a musician. He was apparently on his way home from a job last weekend when his car broke down. Michelle Miller shows us within hours he was dead. Michelle, good morning.
Good morning. Corey Jones was the grandson of a church bishop and the first cousin of San Francisco 49er Anquan Bolden. He had car trouble early Sunday morning when he was approached by a plainclothes police officer who drove up in an unmarked squad car. What happened next is under investigation.
Family members say they knew something was wrong when Corey Jones didn't show up for Sunday church services.
Anything you need, Corey would be right there. If you needed a shirt, he would give you his shirt. He would be cold just to keep you warm.
They say the 31-year-old had a rhythm all his own. He played drums at the Bible Church of God in Boynton Beach, where his grandfather serves as bishop.
He don't deserve this. He don't. And we just need justice.
The family of Corey Jones is struggling to understand why the 31-year-old was shot and killed by a police officer after his car broke down on a Florida highway.
My nephew broke him down on the side of the road.
It was around 3:15 a.m. Sunday. Jones was on the side of Interstate 95. His brother tells CNN affiliate WPTV Jones called him for help, saying he needed a tow truck. Palm Beach Gardens police say Officer Nouman Raja, who was on duty but wearing plain clothes and driving an unmarked police car, stopped to investigate what he thought was an abandoned vehicle on the exit ramp.
As the officer exited his vehicle, he was suddenly confronted by an armed subject. As a result of the confrontation, the officer discharged his firearm, resulting in the death of Mr. Corey Jones.
Officer Raja joined the force in April. The 38-year-old officer was not wearing a body camera, and none of the department's squad cars are fitted with dashboard cameras. Jones was a graduate of the University of Akron in Ohio and worked for the Delray Beach Housing Authority.
It's a big blow. A big blow. It hurt, man. It hurt so bad.
With no cameras and no known witnesses, his family wants answers.
In a state of disbelief, because of all people, Corey is not someone that we would think would be shot by a police officer.
The officer involved was hired by the Palm Beach Gardens Police Department earlier this year and is now on paid administrative leave.
There are no records with our agency of any complaints, disciplinary actions, or internal affairs investigations against Officer Raja.
Palm Beach Gardens police have not said what type of weapon Jones allegedly had. Relatives said they don't think he owned a gun. Officer Raja has been placed on paid administrative leave following departmental policy.
So this brother Corey Jones, who was a drummer, was on his way home after a gig when his car broke down on the highway. So he called his brother CJ Jones, who actually played in the NFL, and he also called one of his bandmates for help. So eventually, they ended up getting roadside assistance, and the brother was just sitting there waiting on the tow truck to come, minding his own business. Then, all of a sudden, a little after 3 o'clock in the morning, Officer Nouman Raja, a cop wearing plain clothes, just a t-shirt and jeans, pulled up in an unmarked white van with the windows tinted out of nowhere. Now, the police say Officer Nouman Raja was in plain clothes because they assigned him to go look for car burglars in parking lots. Now, I don't know what that had to do with this brother in a broken down car on the side of the highway, but in a sworn statement, this cop said he thought the car was abandoned, so he left his duty gun, his vest, his badge, his radio, and he didn't have his uniform on. And then he said he repeatedly identified himself as a police officer and even offered this brother some help. Then Officer Nouman Raja claims that as soon as he identified himself as police, this brother Corey Jones jumped back, pulled his gun, and aimed it at the cop. Now, even though he left his department-issued gun back in the car, he just so happened to have his personal gun and was left with no other choice but to shoot this brother 3 times. And then he claims this brother took off running, I guess after he shot him, and then turned around and pointed the gun at him again, forcing him to shoot 3 more times. Now, even though they found a gun, which he legally owned, it was 80 feet away from his body. But the police already had their capes on and they were already defending this cop until they found out this brother was on the phone with roadside assistance the whole time. And they realized the whole thing was recorded on audio.
Today, more photos, video, and audio recordings have been released in the Corey Jones shooting investigation. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Shannon Cake. Welcome to the Now, South Florida. We begin with this breaking news. For the first time, we are hearing Corey Jones' voice the morning he was approached by a Palm Beach Gardens police officer and then killed, all while waiting for a tow truck. The Now's Michelle Casada with what the call actually reveals. Michelle?
Shannon, the audio recording we're about to play is from when Corey called AT&T roadside assistance. It was after 3 a.m. October 18, 2015, when Corey broke down off I-95 at the PGA exit. His entire conversation with the dispatcher was recorded while he waited for a tow truck, revealing what happened when Officer Nouman Raja walked up.
What's the address of the vehicle location?
I'm off the PGA southbound exit. On 95.
On 95?
I-95 exit PGA southbound.
Okay, is there any, hold on, let me write southbound down. Is there any buildings, landmarks, anything like that, that I could use to pinpoint your address?
You good? Yeah, I'm good. Yeah. Get your hands up. Get your hands up.
Oh my gosh. There's gunshots.
We just obtained a copy of Raja's interview with police. Raja, at the time of the shooting, was dressed in plain clothes, and he was driving an unmarked white van. He says he saw what he thought was an empty vehicle parked on the off-ramp, but when he pulled up, he says Corey Jones got out of the car and pointed a gun at him. Raja told investigators he identified himself as a police officer, and he says that is when Jones started running.
The whole time I'm like giving him commands, I'm yelling, screaming at him. I'm like, drop the gun, drop the gun, drop the gun. And as he's running, he gets about like right just a little past where the guardrail starts, and he does this number, and I see his whole body spin, and I saw like a flash, a silver flash of like a metallic flash come at me, and in my head I immediately said, aim, aim, and I was like, aim, and I was like, and I just picked that front sight right in the center mass, and I just pulled the trigger 3 times, and I saw him drop, and I saw something silver fall.
Investigators say Raja's story is simply untrue. They say they found Corey Jones's gun about 80 feet from Jones's body. They say there's no way he could have spun with the gun in his hand and then dropped the gun right next to his body after he was shot. They also say Raja did not know at the time that he gave that interview that investigators already had a recording. Corey Jones is on the phone with roadside assistance when Raja pulled up, and they say you can hear in that recording that Raja never identifies himself as a police officer. Right now, Raja is charged in connection with Corey Jones's death. He is still awaiting trial.
Now, initially, the police and Officer Nouman Raja didn't realize there was any evidence against them, and they were ready to justify the murder of this young brother by a plainclothes cop in an unmarked car. And just because this brother was practicing his Second Amendment rights and had his legal conceal permit, but there was too much evidence against the cops, even the person with roadside assistance was ready to testify against the cop. And he was caught in so many lies, even the police couldn't defend him anymore. They had to fire him, and eventually they charged him.
And the police report that Ehrenberg released just hours ago says that Officer Nouman Raja's intent was to kill Corey Jones. They say it was the totality of the situation. The unmarked van going up the wrong way of the PGA exit, the plain clothes he was wearing, and not identifying himself as a police officer, that all leads to culpable negligence in the shooting and killing of Corey Jones. Former Officer Nouman Raja originally told investigators he identified himself as a cop when he pinned in a Jones car on the PGA exit. But according to this grand jury report, Corey Jones' call to roadside assistance recorded the actual incident, and Raja was wearing plainclothes, not a badge or a vest, and he never said he was a police officer. And within seconds, he fired his gun 3 times rapidly at Jones, then another 3 times more deliberately as Jones was running away, even though he told them he saw Jones throw down his own gun.
The grand jury today found that the use of force by Mr. Raja was unjustified. Mr. Raja has been arrested and taken into custody.
According to the report, Raja asked Jones repeatedly if he were okay, and each time Jones said, "I'm good." And Raja confrontationally asked him twice, "Really? Really?" And then suddenly shouted for Jones to drop his weapon and started firing. The grand jury concluding that it was grossly negligent of Officer Raja to fire and to approach Jones in this way. He wasn't wearing the vest or the badge that his sergeant claims he told him to. And he even left his police radio and his police gun in that unmarked van, and he used his own personal Glock to shoot and kill Corey Jones and used his own personal cell phone to call 911.
Gun right now!
For the first time, we hear what former Palm Beach Gardens police officer Nouman Raja was telling dispatch when he confronted drummer Corey Jones, who was shot to death last October. Jones was broken down off an I-95 ramp waiting for help when Raja, in plain clothes and in an unmarked car, approached Jones.
Got one down. I just shot one person. I'm at that off-ramp right behind Doubletree. Blackmail.
Nouman Raja, please.
But Raja was arrested a month ago, charged with manslaughter and attempted murder after a grand jury determined his story did not add up.
I came out, I saw him come out with a handgun, I gave him commands, I identified myself, and he pointed the gun at me, started running, I shot him.
While Jones had a gun, investigators say it was never used and found feet away from his body. The call to roadside assistance was recorded and contradicts Raja's version of events. The state attorney says at no time during the recording did Raja say he was a police officer.
All right, stay on the phone, all right, buddy? Gardens off on, I'm by the radio now. All right, hang up the phone, bud. All right, bud.
Now, they ended up charging this cop, Nouman Raja, with murder and manslaughter charges. And this cop is planning to use the stand your ground laws in Florida as a defense. Now, mind you, in the same state of Florida, they just ruled against the state attorney, Aramis Ayala, because she was trying to get rid of the death penalty. By the way, based off facts and evidence. But now, in the same state of Florida, they allow cops to use the stand your ground laws when it comes to murdering somebody. And there's a good chance this defense will work because it already has. In the same area, Deputy Peter Peraza, who shot and killed a mentally ill brother, Jermaine McBean, who had an air rifle, and he was the first cop to use the stand your ground laws to beat a manslaughter charge. So right now in Florida, until another judge reverses it, case law says a cop can use the stand your ground laws to get away with murder. Now, they charged Officer Nouman Raja back in 2015, and 3 years later, they still haven't gone to trial. And recently, they just moved the trial date back again for the 4th time.
Developing now, the trial for the former police officer accused of shooting and killing Corey Jones is now delayed until July. Former Palm Beach Gardens officer Nouman Raja and his lawyers are now using a stand your ground defense to try to get the charges against him dismissed. Today, a judge set a hearing on that for the end of March, pushing Raja's trial back from April to July. Corey Jones's family says the delay is hurtful.
Still believing that we're going to get justice concerning our son, Corey, and we will not stop fighting. We will continue to keep the beat alive for our son.
It's a complicated case. The issues of stand your ground are complicated. It's going to require a hearing. That'll be resolved, and we will be ready for trial.
Raja's attorney just filed the stand your ground defense last week. The judge will hear those arguments beginning March 28th.
And the whole time, this cop has been out of jail on a $250,000 bond, still working with the police union, still working around guns, even though he's not supposed to. But if we're going to be waiting on them to give us justice and punish themselves, we're going to be waiting for a long time. This is the reason why we need institutions. The one thing we have not done for the last couple hundred years was build institutions designed to protect us. And every time that we tried, it was systematically attacked and destroyed. But we have to realize until we build those institutions, then we're going to be attacked and destroyed anyway. And we have no excuses. We could easily build institutions that could protect us right now. We can put together organizations run by the most successful black businessmen and women to help grow our economy that we all can contribute to. We already give so much money away. A white man in Australia can create a fake Black Lives Matter page on Facebook and scam so many people because a lot of people just give their money away. If we're going to give our money away, we can at least do it with a purpose. Because if we don't create our own economy and practice group economics, then we're never going to be able to build the institutions that we need. The institutions to teach our own children. The institutions to help our mentally ill. And until we put aside our differences and our tribalism and respond with more urgency than they have to keep their place, we're not going to be able to build institutions to protect ourselves.
That's right. Raja is here inside his home where he will remain until trial. And I did get my hands on his newly filed court documents and also discovered some new information, including where he was working for this police and military tactical arms gear company, where the gun enthusiast and former police officer has been working since he was fired. This is Nouman Raja's booking document, which lists the charges against him for shooting and killing Corey Jones in October. It also lists the address of where Raja was picked up by deputies Wednesday. According to that arrest report, Nouman Raja was arrested here at Tactical Products Group on Wednesday. It's closed right now for inventory, but inside the guy tells me this is a new company. The old one moved and he knows nothing about Nouman Raja or his arrest. That man says he works for Delray Exotic Motors, which has the same phone number and owner as Tactical Arms Products. TPG supplies military-style gear here and in the Middle East. We saw some guns lining the hallway and camo vests and helmets in an open room. The police union tells me Raja has been working here the past few months. As part of Raja's house arrest, he must surrender all guns and weapons to the sheriff's office. But a search of court records reveals no search warrant has been issued to his address, so it's unclear if he has turned over his weapons yet or not. Raja will be back in court June 20th for arraignment. His case has been randomly assigned to Judge Samantha Foyer, who also presided over the recent case of Boynton Beach cop Stephen Marorino, who was found not guilty of rape last year. And not much activity here in this quiet neighborhood, although we did see one man who looked like he might be Raja's sheriff's office deputy brother leaving, as well as a woman who could have been his wife, but we're not identifying anyone here in this neighborhood. All quiet here as Nouman Raja begins his first night on house arrest.
This is the second time in less than 2 months the attorneys for former Palm Beach Gardens police officer Nouman Raja have put in a request to the court to reduce his house arrest. Now, Raja's attorney, Richard Lubin, now argues his client has followed all conditions of his bond and house arrest since his release. Raja is charged with attempted murder and manslaughter in the October 2015 shooting death of Corey Jones. The Boynton Beach musician was waiting on a tow truck on the off-ramp of I-95 at PGA Boulevard. Now, Raja has since been fired and on house arrest and able to work and bring his daughter to school 5 days a week. Raja's attorney is now pushing the envelope even more by attempting to get rid of house arrest altogether. In documents filed, his attorney says the state is trying to use house arrest as a form of punishment. He's referencing a judge denying Raja's request in January to attend his daughter's function at a school that he brings her to 5 days out of the week. Now, the judge citing that it was a slippery slope. Now, Nouman Raja is expected to be back in court later this month.
Details today in the criminal case against Nouman Raja. He's the former Palm Beach Gardens police officer who shot and killed local drummer Corey Jones in 2015. Defense attorneys told a judge they need more information about the charges against Raja, arguing prosecutors should be ordered to provide them. A judge disagrees. Contact 5 investigator Sam Smink explains the defense says they still won.
Defense attorneys for Nouman Raja told a Palm Beach County judge they're having trouble creating their defense strategy, claiming the state hasn't given them all of the information they need. Raja is charged with both manslaughter and attempted murder. The defense says because of those dual charges, they need more facts, including which shot out of 6 fired by Raja killed Corey Jones.
And I bang, 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 and I fired about 2 or maybe 3 rounds.
In October 2015, investigators say Raja, dressed in plain clothes, approached Jones's car, which was broken down off 95. Raja claims Jones pulled a gun on him and he shot back in self-defense. But investigators say Jones's body was found a significant distance away from Jones's gun and that Raja lied during interviews.
Of the association says the former cop who killed Corey Jones is being unfairly targeted.
Is Raja being punished for being a policeman? Do we want law enforcement officers to hesitate before they do their jobs?
Nouman Raja had less than 6 months at the Palm Beach Gardens Police Department when he shot Corey Jones. John Kazanjian says Raja, still a probationary officer at the time, should not have been put in an undercover position to begin with. Kazanjian also going after the state attorney, claiming outside forces have influenced the case. The association president even brought out the probable cause affidavit Thursday, insisting the AT&T roadside assistance recording proves Raja identified himself before pulling a gun on Jones.
Obviously, we're all intelligent, grown adults. Something must have been said when Mr. Jones said, huh. So Officer Raja was not lying. He was telling the truth when he identified himself as a police officer.
That clashes with the narrative in the report. According to the affidavit, the AT&T recording picked up Jones's car door chiming when it opens before any conversation that begins with a short exchange of words and ends in gunfire, over the course of which the affidavit states Raja never identified himself as an officer. The Benevolent Association isn't just verbally supporting Raja, they plan to pay in full for his legal fees.
We expect that justice will be served and the truth, just will come out.
In Friday's hearing, state prosecutors argued the defense was simply trying to learn their trial strategy. They also admitted that they don't know which shot killed Jones. Ultimately, the judge ruled against the defense, but Raja's attorneys told Channel 5 they still won.
The state announced today that they don't know. So in a lot of ways, we obtained the information that we wanted.
The defense plans to argue that Raja killed Jones in self-defense, and that will be taken up at a stand your ground hearing on March 28th.
Off the top at 6, outrage tonight after a judge dismissed manslaughter charges against a Broward Sheriff's deputy who shot and killed a man who was holding an air rifle. But prosecutors aren't giving up. They plan to appeal the ruling.
Local 10 News investigator Amy Vette is live in the newsroom with this controversial decision. Amy.
Lori and Calvin, it's been almost exactly 3 years since the shooting death of Jermaine McBean. Deputy Peter Peraza has been suspended without pay since the indictment late last year. And after learning the judge ruled to dismiss the charge, the state attorney's office told us they will appeal.
The ruling is the case is dismissed.
A judge heavily weighed the mental state of Jermaine McBean at the time of his shooting death at the hands of BSO Deputy Peter Peraza. McBean, a 33-year-old IT worker, was not taking prescribed antipsychotic medications on July 31st, 2013, when he carried an air rifle into the Green Tree Apartments in Oakland Park. Peraza shot McBean when he ignored commands to drop the weapon and allegedly pointed it at deputies.
What matters is perception. That air rifle looked very real.
Wednesday's order from the judge dismisses manslaughter charges against Peraza after a grand jury indicted him last December.
Mr. McBean never, ever pointed this air gun at any deputy or at anyone else.
Never did.
Michael McCarthy was the lone eyewitness out of 5 who said McBean kept the rifle on his shoulders. In Wednesday's ruling, the court finds McCarthy's testimony to be the least credible of the eyewitnesses. His testimony directly contradicts the physical and forensic evidence, as well as the testimony of the other 4 eyewitnesses. McBean was involuntarily hospitalized after a psychotic episode at work 6 days before his death. The defense said his behavior, buying and showcasing the air rifle, was an attempt at suicide by cop. The court did not find evidence to support that, but wrote evidence showed McBean was in the midst of a psychotic episode at the time of the shooting. His last statement indicated he understood the perceived threat.
Wayne in his last breath said, "It's only a BB gun."
After his death, a photo of McBean wearing earbuds surfaced.
Did you ever notice any earbuds on him in his ears?
No.
Only one medic recalled the earbuds. The court found them irrelevant to the case. While the issue of earbuds might account for the victim's behavior, they do not change the perceived threat from the perspective of the defendant. And the appeal process could take several months. In the meantime, I reached out, but BSO has not yet said if or when Peraza's suspension could be lifted and he could possibly return to duty.
For the first time ever, we're getting a look at LAPD body camera video, and it's raising big questions about how officers handled an arrest. According to a defense attorney, the videos show officers planting drugs.
And you will only see these videos here on CBS 2. And CBS 2 investigative reporter David Goldstein has the story.
Yeah, we have 12 of those videos from one incident. Now, the LAPD has refused to release any of these body cam videos ever since the program began, but we obtained them from one arrest, and attorneys say these videos show a different version than what's in the police report. Did they catch you on the body cam there? I mean, the body cam video definitely was different than what your testimony was.
I have no comments, sir.
LAPD officer Samuel Lee left Van Nuys court after a defense attorney showed department body cam video that he says caught the officer in a lie. Attorney Steve Levine also says he believes it proves they planted drugs on a suspect.
He looked dumbstruck to me, period. He had really no answers.
We've obtained 12 body cam videos worn by individual officers on the scene of a hit-and-run incident in April. This is the first time we've seen video from the cameras in a real police investigation. LAPD has refused to release any of the videos since the program began 2 years ago. 52-year-old Ronald Shields was arrested for felony hit and run, possession of cocaine, and having a gun in his trunk. Officer Lee is seen here searching the suspect. He testified in court, the same as what the police report shows, that the cocaine was found in Shields' front left pocket. But the video shows an entirely different story that brings up even more questions. Watch this angle from the beginning. LAPD officer Gaxiola picks up Shields' wallet from the street, shows it to Officer Lee, who points to the suspect as if to say it's his. He puts it back down, then steps on the street, bends over and picks up a small bag with white powder. It eventually tested positive for drugs. He goes back on the sidewalk, picks up the wallet, and motions to Lee, and appears to put the bag in the wallet. Now, if you're wondering why anyone would allegedly do this while being recorded, this could be the reason. You hear the audio and saw the officer's hand. That's when he actually activated the recording on the camera. But what he may not have known is that the previous 30 seconds is automatically saved without audio. And if you rewind those 30 seconds, that's where this all takes place.
It seems improbable that someone would tape themselves planting drugs.
Exactly.
So it seems more reasonable that when he turned on his cam, he felt he was recording at that point.
And didn't know it was going back 30 seconds.
Correct.
We saw the body cam video. You're putting it in the wallet. Why are you putting the cocaine in the suspect's wallet?
No comment.
Can you tell me, sir? Gaxiola hasn't testified yet and had nothing to say. The body cam video clearly shows that you're picking it up off the ground and putting it in the suspect's wallet. Why would you do that, sir?
No comment.
On the video, after he collects the wallet, he shows it off and brags about it to some of the others.
There's a little bag of narco in it. Where? You see it?
Not just once.
Just so you know, sir, inside this thing, there's a little bag of narco.
Not just twice.
Just to let you know, sir, inside his wallet, he has a little bag of narco, yeah.
But 3 times. And remember, the police report said it was found in his pocket. So how did the drugs get on the ground? Officer Lee says it fell out of Shields' pocket. Levine has another theory.
There's a little white square here in his hand.
He believes and showed this video in court, claiming it shows Officer Gaxiola planted the drugs.
It's right there. There's that little white square right above the ear of the searching officer. I believe the video shows that the drugs were originally in his right hand and he transfers them to his left hand. Now, if you watch, he looks down to make sure they're there, and that's when the drugs were planted.
But the judge admitted he didn't see it the same way on the video. Now, no decisions today. The hearing will be continued in December. After we contacted LAPD, they looked into it tonight. They say, based on those videos, they are opening an investigation.
All right, and we back on the forecast. So in Texas, a sister, Yvette Smith, was shot and killed by Bastrop PD in her own home. Now let's see why this sister was shot dead in her own home by the police.
We're getting our first look at video from the night a Bastrop County Sheriff's deputy shot and killed a woman.
It is dash cam video played during day 1 of Deputy Daniel Willis's trial. A grand jury indicted him for murder after he shot and killed Yvette Smith. Chris Sadeghi watched that video and has more from Bastrop.
Both sides agree this case is going to boil down to what the jury feels are reasonable actions for a law enforcement officer, specifically the actions of Daniel Willis in a 3-second window. Dashcam video caught some of what happened, but the 3 seconds leading up to 2 gunshots will be key. Daniel Willis was called to the home on a report 2 men were fighting, and in opening statements, attorneys say that Yvette Smith was trying to get one of the men to put down a gun. But Willis, outside the home, is seen retrieving his rifle when a 911 call came in from the home that someone inside was loading the gun. Willis fired when Smith opened the door.
She opened the door to let her look at her hand.
Yvette Smith's family could hardly bear to watch and listen. Her son left the courtroom. Willis maintains he saw something in Smith's hand. Although there was a gun reported at the home, the prosecution says it was not in Smith's hand and Willis was too quick to fire.
I saw a gun. Nobody had a gun.
The gun's on the table right now. There's a gun on the table. Nobody has the gun in their hand. Okay.
And although all the action may have happened in that 3-second window, this trial could last a week, possibly 2, as the jury's expected to hear more about the information Willis had going in to that call, a situation his attorney called a dangerous and deadly situation.
We've learned the woman shot to death by a Bastrop County Sheriff's deputy was struck twice, once in her abdomen and once on her behind. The autopsy report of Yvette Smith also showed she had a blood alcohol level of .104. That's above the legal limit for driving in Texas, though she was at home at the time. Deputy Daniel Willis shot Smith in February when he arrived at the house to respond to a dispute. Texas Rangers are overseeing the investigation into this shooting.
So this sister Yvette Smith called 911 herself because 2 people in her house were arguing. And again, we need to stop calling 911, especially for domestic situations. And especially if it has something to do with mental illness, because the police are not there to help us. This is a reason why we need our own institutions. But the sister Yvette Smith called 911, and the police claim they got a call about 2 men fighting over a gun. Now, all the witnesses say it was a father and son arguing over money, not over a gun. But even if they did get a call about 2 men fighting over a gun, they shot and killed a woman, the woman who called. Now, Officer Daniel Willis initially said this sister walked to the doorstep with a gun and she was refusing to follow his commands. And even though no witnesses or the evidence doesn't corroborate his story, he claims she threatened him with a gun and he was left with no other choice but to shoot and kill her because he feared for his life. Now, this sister Yvette Smith, who called 911, was opening the door for the cop, Daniel Willis, when he yelled police and then shot her 2 times within 3 seconds. On top of that, this cop used his own personal AR-15 to shoot this woman at point-blank range. Then, a day later, the police issued a second statement which contradicted their first, saying they couldn't confirm that this woman had a gun or any kind of weapon, or that she disregarded any of the cops' demands. Now, eventually, they did end up firing this cop, and they were left with no other choice but to press charges.
A former Bastrop County Sheriff's deputy charged with murder for shooting an unarmed woman is back on trial after a hung jury 7 months ago. Daniel Willis was responding to a call when he shot Yvette Smith twice when she came to the door, even though she did not have a weapon. KXAN's Chris Sadeghi is at the courthouse in Bastrop, where there definitely will not be a hung jury this time.
On day 1 of this retrial, we heard and saw some of the same evidence we saw in the first trial. However, there are some key differences this time around that could sway the result. In opening statements, the state said Daniel Willis made a split-second irrational decision to pull the trigger and kill unarmed Yvette Smith. But his attorney, Robert McCabe, says split-second decisions are the ones officers have to make.
And when they do so, they're judged like this by inexperienced prosecutors, inexperienced investigators, and malicious prosecution.
Willis was responding to a disturbance call, and the caller said a gun was involved, but that gun had been put away when he got there. But the defense says Willis never got that information.
The Bastrop County Sheriff's Department communications failed in this case, and that was a huge factor in Daniel Willis not knowing that that gun was put down.
In the first trial, the jury hung, with 8 of the 12 believing Willis was guilty. This time around, the decision is all Judge Albert McCaig's, who is seeing key dashcam video of the shots on Tuesday.
But this judge will not be swayed by local political pressure. He won't be swayed by what's in the news. Vindictiveness. Political prosecution, scapegoat. That's why we're here.
The judge is not allowing audio from the courtroom in this trial. However, coming up at 6 o'clock, we'll take audio from the last trial, combine it with the video that we saw on Tuesday to give you the best look at the actions Daniel Willis took leading up to those shots that he fired. For now, we're in Bastrop. Chris Sadeghi, KXAN News.
While the murder case against former Deputy Willis continues, Bastrop County already settled a civil lawsuit over this shooting. Last April, Bastrop County agreed to pay $1.2 million to Yvette Smith's family. The family's lawsuit claimed the sheriff's office was negligent in hiring Willis. Records show Willis applied to work for the Austin Police Department but failed a psychological exam. He got a job as a jailer for Travis County. Willis took the exam to become a patrol deputy for the Travis County Sheriff's Office 3 times, but he did not pass. Then in May of 2013, Bastrop County hired him to become a deputy sheriff. We have a closer look at Willis's background at our website.
So his first trial ended up in a hung jury where 8 people said he was guilty and 4 people said he was innocent. So in a retrial, he asked for a bench trial instead of a jury trial. I guess he figured too many people were off code and this was the safest bet. So he got a bench trial, and amazingly, he got Judge Albert McCaig. Now, this is the same judge who helped pick the grand jury in the Sandra Bland case, in which they justified another black woman's murder. And to no surprise, Judge Albert McCaig decided to clear this cop of all charges.
Not guilty is the verdict for a former Bastrop County Sheriff's deputy who shot and killed an unarmed woman.
Daniel Willis was responding to a call and shot Yvette Smith when he said he thought he saw a gun. KXAN's Chris Sadeghi was in the courtroom as the emotions boiled over after this acquittal.
Last year's hung jury was leaning towards convicting Willis, but Judge Albert McCaig said he would not be influenced by media or politics and that there was plenty of blame to go around.
And it is the verdict of this court that you are not guilty of the charges stated in the indictment.
That ruling brought on the tears and brought on the anger.
Total! A total!
But Willis's attorney, Robert McCabe, echoed what the judge said, that Willis was called to that home because 2 men were fighting over a gun.
Had they not acted like fools and done those things, Daniel Willis wouldn't have been called.
By reciting a Teddy Roosevelt quote, McCaig indicated it's easy to second-guess officers without being in their shoes, and then showed the difference between a judge and a jury that was leaning toward guilty last year.
I think jurors can be swayed by their life experiences, their emotions, their local citizens. They're swayed by things they read and see.
But the judge said he would rule on the law, and ruled when Yvette Smith was killed, Willis was within it.
He has been a political scapegoat for Bastrop County for 2 years. He's ready to move on with his life.
And we're told Willis has not discussed his future with his attorney, but right now he simply wants to spend time with his family.
In the statement, the judge called Yvette Smith a victim, then went on to blame the 2 men who were fighting, even though witnesses say they were fighting over money, not over a gun, and nobody had a gun. But then as Judge Albert McCaig went on to quote a Theodore Roosevelt speech from 1910, basically giving a Blue Lives Matter speech and caping for the cops, before clearing Officer Daniel Willis of all charges. Now this guy Daniel Willis was never even supposed to be a cop. He was denied by a number of police departments because he kept failing the psych evaluation. Now for a number of police departments to turn you down for a psych evaluation, especially in Texas, something really has to be wrong. This guy even failed his patrol exam. He got a job as a CO, and even one of his supervisors wrote he needs more development in handling explosive situations. Even as a CO, his supervisor realized he needs more development in using common sense. But the Bastrop PD decided to give him a job anyway, and they didn't even give him a psych evaluation. And his supervisor, Joey Zanowinski, was even caught tampering with his records, and he signed off on training that he didn't even do, and that he didn't get any valid signatures on. But they didn't fire his supervisor, they only suspended him for a few days. This cop, Daniel Willis, was able to murder this sister Yvette Smith, even though he was not supposed to be a cop, even though he got caught lying about the situation, even though he shot down an unarmed black woman. They still justify her murder. They still stay on code. Yet when we are the ones being murdered, and when it's our bloodshed, we cannot stay on code or even get on the code. Until this system is destroyed and we build our own system where we make sure we protect ourselves, then this thing is going to continue to happen over and over and over again. They don't care if it's a woman. They got a call about 2 men fighting and they murdered a woman. Yet here we are after hundreds of years and we're still begging and crying and asking them for justice. No one can give you justice. You have to take it for yourself. Now, if every person in her house was armed and had the mindset of not letting this cop get away with this, they will think twice about shooting down our men, our women, our children, our elderly. But while we're out here marching and begging and protesting for the last 50 years, they have no problem killing us. They have no problem shedding our blood and justifying it, and then call you the terrorist if you disagree. But until we put aside our differences for the things we agree on, like us not getting killed, like our children having the best possible opportunities in the future, then we're going to continue to be subject to their laws, their rules, and their punishments. And they can do whatever they want and get away with it. And we can't do nothing but cry about it.
Mr. Daniel J. Willis, and it is the verdict of this court that you are not guilty of the charges stated in the indictment. Anything from the state? No. Anything further from the defense? No. These matters are adjourned. Thank you both for your courtesies on all points. Bullshit! That's bullshit! That's bullshit! That's the bullshit!
Told y'all these hoes down here, man. Some bull.
He's wrong. He murdered my daughter. He murdered her. He murdered her. Let me sit down. Let me sit down. Let me sit down. Oh, my son. Oh God. Oh God. Oh God. Oh Jesus. Jesus.
You got it. Honey, get on her side.
Thank you.
I'll be
I'm okay. Oh Jesus. Breathe. Call in front. Breathe. Lean up against your car. Lean up. Breathe.
This wasn't Daniel Willis driving around looking for trouble. This is two men fighting with weapons in a violent encounter where 911 was called. Had they not acted like fools and done those things, Daniel Willis wouldn't have been called. People call 911 for an emergency. This was the most serious type of call law enforcement can respond to. Daniel Willis responded timely, professionally, and acted appropriately. The judge recognizes that officers are forced to make split-second decisions in tense, uncertain, and rapidly evolving circumstances. That's exactly what we expect of our law enforcement. That's exactly what Daniel Willis did, and if he had to do it again, he'd take the same action. The judge is absolutely right. Yvette Smith is, her family is a victim of this. She was shot and killed. But Daniel Willis is legally justified in taking the action he took, and we do not regret the action that he took that night.
Now that this happened, it just makes us insecure here.
An unarmed woman shot and killed in Bastrop County.
I think I speak for everybody saying that, I don't think we could ever trust the police after this.
Her family wants justice, and KXAN Investigates is digging for answers.
We first told you late last week about the $5 million wrongful death lawsuit filed against the Bastrop County Sheriff's Office.
Back in February, Deputy Daniel Willis shot and killed Yvette Smith as he responded to a call about two men fighting. The suit alleges Willis used unreasonable, unnecessary, and excessive force, and that previous supervisors warned he needed help with common sense in handling explosive situations.
That led KXAN investigator Robert Maxwell to dig into Willis's background. He joins us live now with what he found. Robert?
Well, Robert, Shannon, employment documents paint a picture of somebody who grew up in a small town near Houston and long dreamed of becoming a deputy sheriff. State law enforcement licensing records show us Bastrop County employed Daniel Willis as a patrol deputy for 13 months. In June, he was fired, charged with Yvette Smith's murder. Her family has long questioned how local deputies are selected and chosen. Before working in Bastrop, we discovered Daniel Willis was a jailer in Travis County for more than 8 years.
I answered the door, and there was two investigators, two of them. They told me, your mom's been involved in an accident, and I'm thinking it was a car wreck. And it was like, no, she was shot by an officer and she died.
The morning of February's officer-involved shooting, Daniel Willis had been patrolling Bastrop County for exactly 10 months. Records KXAN obtained from his former employer in neighboring Travis County show in 2007, Willis took a corrections job with the goal of one day becoming a patrol deputy. His handwritten application shows he'd also applied to Austin Police and acknowledged he failed that department's psychological exam. State licensing rules require county jailers and peace officers to pass a psychological test. Since those records are not public and there are no statewide standards, It can only be assumed Willis met Travis County's standard. In early 2008, he received his jailer's certification. Willis's employment records show he excelled here, posting perfect attendance and scoring well on performance reviews, even receiving recognition in 2009 for saving the life of a suicidal prisoner. Before long, corrections officer Willis applied to transfer to patrol duties. In 2012, his jail supervisors agreed in written evaluations. Willis appears to be mature enough to handle the responsibilities of a patrol officer, and he was not scared to handle disruptive or combative inmates. But one wrote he needed more development in handling explosive situations and the utilization of common sense. Travis County records show Willis failed his first patrol exam in 2010. It's unclear what skills he lacked. He would try 3 more times before resigning in May of 2013 to take an open deputy job in Bastrop. Since there was no gap between the law enforcement jobs, the state required no new psychological test before Willis began responding to calls in rural Bastrop County.
You're going to have to go back and look at who's hiring and who's training these people.
Now, we do know before hiring him, Bastrop County requested Daniel Willis's personnel file from the Travis County Sheriff's Office. We've requested Bastrop's employment file, and that request is now in the hands of the DA there. Now, Shannon, Robert, one source I talked with today, a longtime law enforcement attorney, says often in these cases, as is the case in many job descriptions, you get what you pay for. Better training, better hiring policies, sometimes produce better officers.
A Palm Beach County teacher is out of a job tonight after he's accused of making racist remarks in the classroom.
Now, a recording of it all under investigation right now. Whitney's live in Royal Palm Beach with the very latest. Whitney, what's going on here?
Every student here knew about the YouTube video that originally surfaced on those conservative blogs. The whole thing goes on for about 5 minutes. Here's just a little bit of the clip.
What is the scientific and systematic approach to destroying black civilization?
It starts with a question, but the voice captured in the video, supposedly posted by an anonymous Royal Palm Beach high school student last week, goes on to talk about black deities and gentrification.
You don't see soul food restaurants open up in Chinese neighborhoods, you know what I mean, Asian communities, no. You understand? But who do you see in the black community reaping economically the benefits of their dollars? Everybody but them, right?
The anonymous poster claims the voice is teacher Ezekiel Edmonds, and the setting is science class. I talked to students standing in support of the educator who say he's well liked.
We were doing a blackout for him, and he is the reason why I'm still in school and motivated.
It's not like we never opened up the science book. I got science done in there, but he taught me way better things that school doesn't teach you.
But one Royal Palm junior says discussions in science class should stay on topic.
I don't think he should lose his job or anything. I think someone just needs to get it in his head that there's a time and place for someone's opinion. The Palm Beach County School District is investigating whether or not Edmonds is the speaker in the recording.
Anytime we have something like this, we take it seriously.
The district spokeswoman says that Edmonds has been reassigned to a position without contacts with students.
1-day suspension for allegedly calling students dumb and using racial slurs inside his classroom. Some parents think the teacher should be fired.
Yeah, a lot of parents that I spoke with were pretty upset that the teacher was suspended and not terminated. And in this investigation report, several students came forward saying their teacher was offensive. Kernan Middle School teacher David Swiner is suspended for 10 days without pay for allegedly using the N-word in his classroom and calling students dumb.
No call for that in the classroom or around kids, period.
We got our hands on this investigative report into the teacher's allegations. More than 20 students were witnesses. In addition to claims of being aggressive towards students, he also allegedly made comments like, quote, "You all should not be dating all these different African-American boys because they are not worth it."
There's no place for that in the school system.
We went to Swiner's home to get his side of the story, but no one was home. A spokesperson for the school district said he was at school Wednesday, but not in a classroom. And this report also states that Swiner hasn't received progressive discipline in the past. However, I spoke with parents who think there should be a harsher punishment from the school district.
They should be fired, yeah, of course.
So we also have an issue of the day today. One piece on The Root discusses the ideology behind 5 types of Beckys. And so there are 5 types of Beckys. According to the Root piece, a Becky is a white woman who uses her privilege for power, who uses her privilege for a ladder, or even for an excuse.
All right, so I clearly have not taken enough women's studies courses or gender study courses in my time. I've taken a couple sociology courses, and yet I have absolutely no idea what this author is talking about. Julia, can you please enlighten us?
I will. So the overarching Beckys, there's about 5. We have Rebecca, we have Becca, we have Beckisha, we have a Reba, and then we have Beckzilla. And each one has their own type of feminism / racism. A lot of them really try, the first 4 really try to be Beckys, try to be, you know, movers and shakers in the world, and then Beckzilla at the end is
she's just like coming in to wreck everything, right?
She is, absolutely. Yeah. Some of the famous Beckys that are mentioned here are Taylor Swift, I believe, is a Rebecca. We have Tommy Loren, who is apparently a Beckzilla. And a couple other people, I think Lena Dunham, Hillary Clinton's in there, Miley Cyrus, I think, is a Reba.
Yeah.
And it just goes way beyond the fray here.
Yeah, so basically what this author is saying is regardless of how you identify, whether you identify as feminist or not, whether you try to not be racist, whether you're an ally to black people or not, no matter what you do, he's going to call you out because he lists just about every type of white woman I can think of in this list. Mm-hmm. And so this is kind of why I lean more towards the Beckzilla camp, because why even try if he's just going to, if, you know, they're not going to even give examples of good Beckys. They're not going to, you know, try to applaud the people who are trying to even help those communities. It's just all negative. No matter what you do, you're going to get slammed for it. Why even try?
Exactly. He even mentions in the first 4 types of Beckys, disregarding the Beckzilla, number 5, all of these women are trying their hardest. They're trying to be good movers, shakers. Some of them have some timidity. Other women really go out there and they try to be activists, even if they're liberal or progressive. But no matter how hard they try to be these Beckys, just their innate sense of being a white woman. If you notice in the picture as well, 4 of the 5 are blonde, blue-eyed white women. Just because they're white, they cannot fully move the progressive movement along, or whatever their ideology is.
This is precisely why identity politics has failed. It's because people like this will call out entire groups in a negative manner, but then get upset when people do the same thing to them.
Exactly. And you know what? I completely identify as a Beckzilla. You want a Becky? You got one right here. I'll be your Beckzilla.
I love that. Mm-hmm. Final point on this tonight is that the author of this piece talking about white women is none other than a man.
A man! And I think he just mansplained feminism to us.
We just got mansplained by the Root.
We absolutely did. So thank you, Michael Harriot at the Root, who decided to mansplain feminism to us, particularly on the basis of race, but also on the basis of gender. So thanks, Michael.
Seems like a real nice guy.
All right, and we back on the forecast. And I want to say RP to the brother Corey Jones and the sister Yvette Smith. We have got to realize the police are not there to help us. We have got to stop calling them for domestic issues, especially when it comes to something like mental illness. The police are not there to help us. This is why it's important for us to build our own institutions to do that. And we have no excuses. We can do it right now. We give away so much money. A white boy in Australia can create a Black Lives Matter page and scam people. Now imagine if we put that in a focused direction, like opening up black businesses in our local neighborhoods so we can support them, like building and creating our own schools. But until we can learn how to put aside our tribalism and practice group economics and learn how to protect ourselves, then this is going to continue to happen over and over and over again. I don't know how much blood that needs to be shed. I don't know how many centuries it's going to take for us to learn. As long as we allow ourselves to be divided, we are going to be conquered. We have no problem caping for every other group but our own. But at the end of the day, every other group will cape for each other but not us. We have to realize we are all we got. And until we realize that, we're going to continue to be subject to their rules, their laws, and their punishments. And there's nothing we can do about it. So, as always, man, we have got to start standing for something, or we're going to keep falling for anything.